Welcome to this Roll for Crit review of Cat in the Box. In this game, you'll be trying to capture tricks. However, unlike other trick-taking games, you won't know the suits of the cards in your hand. Instead, you'll only find that out as soon as you play the card. So it's time to open the box. Does this breathe new life into the trick-taking genre, or is it dead on Schrodinger's arrival? The core mechanic here is trick-taking Cat in the Box. If you've never heard of that, the basic idea is someone will play a card, and most players will have to follow the same suit of whatever that card is, playing until everyone's played a card, with the highest value, or in some games, a trump color or suit, in this case, red, will be the winner. Now, you may notice, though, that all the cards I just showed are black cats. That's because you don't actually know what color the suit is yet. Instead, you'll find that out when you play that. But before we get there, let's talk about this board here. This will dictate what colors you're allowed to play, as well as at the beginning, you have to make a prediction how many tricks you're going to win. You will make your bets, so whether you're confident or not, and then actually get to the trick-taking phase. Now, there's already some pieces on the board. This would be empty, but let's say, for example, that I decided to play this 4, and I'm going to go with that it's yellow. That means, in essence, a yellow 4 has been played. No one else can play a yellow 4. Other people will follow suit, probably trying to either just get a color that's available in there, so let's say this, as well as maybe beat the suit so they can gain control of it. If you don't have the cards to play that, you can play a different card, let's say a 4, in a different color. So I could choose either the green if I wanted to lose, or the red if I wanted to win. Now, we're just gonna put in the red here. Once I do that, whatever color I didn't play, we remove that token from there. From now on, no matter what, I cannot play yellow cards. Not so bad right now, but that could punish me later on, depending on what's available. Now, let's say every card in my hand has already been covered, and there's no way for me to play a card even shifting to a different color. That would cause a paradox. A paradox automatically ends the round, in which case you're gonna go to scoring. Now, if you don't end a paradox, everyone plays and is down to one card, you don't play the last card, you just go to end game scoring. Now, in the end game, if you have caused a paradox, not so good. You're going to lose a point for every trick you take. If you didn't cause a paradox, you will gain a point for every trick you took. Now, you're going to look then at your prediction. If you are right on your prediction, you're going to get some good bonus points. The points you attain will be based on how you place on this board. You see, it's not a matter of just trying to stop a paradox. For example, if we were able to get 3 tricks exactly, we would get a total of our largest grouping on the board, which in this case would be 5. This means that not only are you playing cards to get cards out of your hand and make sure the right suits, you're going to try to bunch them up in order to make sure that if your prediction is right, you're going to get a lot more points. You're going to do this for 5 rounds, keeping everything in track on a little scoring sheet, and then you're going to see who was the most points, and they are the winner. There are some alternate rules for 2-player as well, but this is what the core rules are. One final thing before I get to talking more, the cards here are actually pop out, and there is another side that you can slide in. Now, this is all there is to it, but because of those slight changes, there's a reason why, if you've been watching my videos, how I was talking so much about this at Gen Con. It's always amazing when someone takes a mechanic, especially a simple one that everyone feels like, yeah, we understand this, we know how this works, and finds a way to really turn it on its head. And I love that with the whole choosing the color. But then when you throw on top of the idea of trying to bunch your things together with the prediction, because we've seen predictions before, but trying to like, oh, I can just play this, but if I play the 3, I might be able to get this, but it might be better to hold off on that because someone else is going to. It really becomes interesting. And then sometimes you might be like, yellow 4 to block that. And it becomes this whole different game of not simply just winning or losing tricks. It's got this really fun, interesting of like, what colors can I risk to play and give up? Like sometimes you fill up and you're like, you know what? I'm going to make this a red. I don't care. There's enough yellows. I'm not going to play it anyway, so I don't need that. Maybe I don't need blue either. Green and red is going to be, I'm going all in there. That said, it's still a gamble because let's say you thought, oh, I'll be able to play more in the other colors, then accidentally, not even people trying to block you just because they're trying to fill up, could play in the colors you're allowed to. So you could get a board state like this in which all the cards you have are maybe 1 through 4, and it's, guess what? You can't play them in blue and green. you're done for. You caused the paradox. And because of that, I feel like a lot of rounds do end in paradox, but I never feel someone feel like I'm doomed from the start. Everyone is just like, oh, how can I play? Oh no, okay, he played there. So that's my fourth slot. How can I get rid of this, or do I have to play this here now? It always kept people engaged and excited. No one ever knew when the game was going to end and the paradox was going to occur, or if you made it to the end of the round. And it always felt so cool. One of the clever, really cool things that happens is if a paradox were to occur, the round that it's in, the trick, isn't scored. We had a game, it was really funny, where someone's like, I'm going to win this trick, and that's going to put me one over my prediction. But someone paradoxed. And because of that, he had the right number of tricks, which gave him a whole bunch of points. It was really fun to watch. It was just like, he's like, oh my God, I got it. And that's what this game does. It does this really fun, you never know what's going to happen. It really captures the strangest box of not knowing. And it keeps you engaged. It keeps you laughing at each other. And it's such a simple theme, but that moments, like, I'm not huge on trick-taking game, but I love this so much more than any of the other ones I've played. It really makes me feel, I don't feel because I'm choosing the colors that it's because my hand was bad. It's like, oh God, I got a terrible distribution for what I need to do, whether it's like certain objectives or just winning tricks. This really feels like I can play the board and my opponents can play me and vice versa. So there's going to actually be, everything feels like a worthwhile choice for the most part. And because of that, if you lose, which actually I've yet to win this game, you don't feel like you were cheated out somehow, or just the randomness of the deck. You're like, I should have played the blue 4 earlier and then hold on to this and not giving up this color. It's somehow made me excited to come back to the game over and over, even though it's a mechanic that I'm usually not the most excited to play. Crits and misses for Cat in the Box. Crits. The removal of suit colors in your hand and only making them appear once you play the card adds a whole new level. In fact, I say this removes a lot of the randomness that could occur and makes you feel that more of the agency is in your own hands, or at the very least, possibly your opponents as well, which means you're going to have to learn how to outplay your opponents and think how they're going to play cards and how you should play cards, rather than hope that your hand has just the right suits and values you'll need for this round. Should you predict the number of tricks you're going to take correctly, you're going to be able to get a bunch of bonus points based on what cards you actually picked. This means you're not simply just trying to empty out your hand and survive. Sometimes you're going to gamble if it means you're more likely to group certain pieces together and get bigger bonus points. This adds a whole new dimension of strategy where it's not simply just gaining the trick, it's trying to plan ahead and maybe trying to stop your opponent's plans. At the same time, maybe not trying to get too greedy, in which case you cause a paradox and aren't able to get those bonus points to begin with. Misses. I will admit the score is a little bit rough in terms of how someone gets positive points and negative points, and I think the scoring pad could have been designed a little bit differently to help add up points for each section rather than just the total for that round. It's not that big of a thing, but it was one of those things that it took us a little while to get used to before we actually got the rhythm of the game. This is a small box game. It's not going to be the big game or the centerpiece probably for a game night. That said, what it does to I would argue, a very common mechanic in the world of board gaming card games, it really does a completely different thing. And that's usually one of the things I tend to like more, because at least it's different. That could be just because I've played enough games. But the bigger things are, one, it's trick taking. And I'll be the first to admit, I don't tend to like trick-taking games nearly as much. In particular, I know I didn't love The Crew as much as other players, but this was much more exciting for me. And the other thing was, this is not a very good way to judge a game, and because, someone's got to lose. But like I said, I've yet to win a game of this. Like, I maybe did well in a round, but my overall score has never been the winning score. And I've been totally fine with that. I've been excited to play another one right afterwards. It just has that fun excitement of, I never feel out of hope I've lost. I'm always excited to see what happens. Maybe I can get that grouping to work out just right. If maybe someone doesn't actually have that 8. Maybe the 8 was pulled out because I actually forgot to mention you take a card out in your opening hand before you begin, which could be what all you need, that space you need, as long as you don't screw up and forget that you need to make sure green is covered. It just adds a lot of fun to it. It adds like some future planning. It removes randomness in a weird way. And of course, just looking at this, I mean, this is not much, but the art of the cat is adorable. This is something I really love to see. I don't need every game to do it. I like deck building, and just because they're very close mechanics, I don't need it to be completely new all the time. But when someone does take a mechanic like that, something we take for granted, and just does something so clever, usually for me, it's very hard not to be intrigued. And the follow through with this one made it not just oh, this is something interesting and different, but a game I will always be happy to have on my shelf. There was a reason it did well at Gen Con, and there will be definitely a reason it will do well at your table. You can let me know what your thoughts on this game are. Did you get a chance to grab it at Gen Con, or are you being able to grab it a little bit later? Do you like this game? Are you a fan of trick-taking games, and do you enjoy this, how it switches it up, or is that actually a bad thing? Do you prefer some of the other trick-taking games instead? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And of course, if you think someone may or may not be interested in this game, you can send them this video so they can be certain. Of course, do the usual stuff, the like, the subscribe, the bell. Those are the scientific measurements YouTube uses for its algorithm to make sure this video does well. But for now, I'm Will, and this is absolutely Roll for Crit.